Welcome back to Math 103. This is video number 1 on fair distribution. What is fair distribution as opposed to fair division? Now, the previous chapter on fair division studied methods for finding a fair division of continuous goods among two or more players. The key examples were land and time. We talked a little bit about cake. What did it mean that they were continuous? It meant that in principle they could be divided in infinitely many ways. By contrast, we now turn to finding a fair distribution of a collection of discrete goods. Discrete means that these are items which cannot individually be divided up further. In other words, a table cannot be cut into smaller pieces and still be of any use. A computer should be given whole to one person rather than taken apart. A painting should not be cut into 4 equally sized pieces. It is sometimes possible for people who are splitting up assets to share a house, but if they don't get along with one another, it's much better if one of them gets the house and the other doesn't have any part of it at all. Similarly, in a custody dispute, when there's a dispute over children, you don't want to start cutting children in half, God forbid. Remember the story of the Judgment of Solomon. There are many more examples of items which cannot be individually cut up any further. Each individual item like this needs to be given in its entirety to one person. As in the previous chapter, we still require that each player receive a fair share of the goods in the same sense in which we used that term before. The precise technical sense that however many players there are, call that number n, a share of the goods is fair to that player if it is worth at least 1/nth of the total value of all the goods from that player's own perspective. So fair share still means the same thing it did previously. We'll study 2 different methods for achieving a fair distribution of goods. One of them is called the method of sealed bids, and I hope you'll be convinced that this is a very practical, very useful method. It will be easier to understand if it's presented through an example. The notorious firm Dewey, Cheatham & Howe, think about that, Dewey, Cheatham & Howe, are dissolving their business partnership. The only item they own in common is their office, which they have different opinions about in terms of its value. Dewey thinks it's worth $300,000, Cheatham thinks it's worth $360,000, and Howe thinks it's worth $270,000. And let's suppose that it's not feasible for them to share the space in ways that we've looked at in the previous chapter. Only one of them can get the office. So how can we carry out a fair distribution of the goods? That means one person gets the office and other people get what? Well, we'll see what. First, let's find each player's minimum fair share amount in dollars. The thought process is the same as in the last chapter. Each player has an idea of the total value of all the goods. Here there is only one item. And there are 3 players. So for each player, the minimum fair share amount is 1/3 of the total value. So for Dewey, that'll be $100,000, for Cheatham, that'll be $120,000, and for Howe, that'll be $90,000. Since one and only one partner will get the office in its entirety, who should that one partner be? Well, there's a case that it should be Cheatham. Right? Cheatham wants it most urgently. Cheatham has, in a certain sense, bid the highest for it. That doesn't mean that we're going to leave Dewey and Howe with nothing, but if there's one person who should get the office, that one person should be Cheatham. Now, we can't just stop there. The other 2 players have nothing yet. Cheatham has a whole office, so we're going to have to give them something, and that something is going to be cash. To carry this out, now the partners set up a bank account for the sole purpose of handling these cash adjustments. Now, since Cheatham has received more than his minimum fair share amount so far, he pays the difference into the bank account. How much is that? Well, he has received, according to him, a $360,000 house, and his minimum fair share amount was only $120,000, so the difference is $240,000. So the way this method works, he has to pay that difference of $240,000 into this bank account. The other 2 players each receive cash from this account so that they each receive exactly a minimum fair share. So they're just receiving cash. Dewey will receive $100,000 from this very bank account that Cheatham just paid into. Howe will receive $90,000 from that same bank account that Cheatham just paid into. What we've just done is to work out what's called the first settlement of this distribution. So we can record what we've done by writing down for each player what items they've received, how much money they've paid into the bank account, if any, and how much money they've received from the bank account, if any. So in Dewey's case, he has received no items. He has not paid anything into the bank account, but he's received $100,000 from the bank account. Cheatham has received the office, and he has paid $240,000 into the bank account. That means he's received nothing from it. Howe has received no items. He's not paid anything into the account, but he has received $90,000. Recording this information counts as describing the first settlement. A key point here is that as of this moment, that is the end of the first settlement, each player has received exactly a minimum fair share, no more and no less. So that's clear for Dewey and for Howe. It's perhaps less clear for Cheatham, but if you think about it, he has received a $360,000 item, and he's paid out $240,000 in cash. The net value of his position here is that he's come out ahead $120,000. That is exactly his minimum fair share amount. Before going on to the next video, please answer the following questions. First, how much surplus cash is there? That is, how much cash is left over after Cheatham is paid into the bank account and payouts have been made to Dewey and Howe? The rule is that the surplus cash, however much there is, will be divided equally among the players. So, how much surplus cash will each player receive?